Some people never ask you to drown with them. They may love you. They may be genuinely struggling. But every new crisis places you back in the same role. Calming, fixing, paying, covering, explaining, and carrying what they cannot or will not carry themselves. Eventually, their emergencies become your nervous system's full-time job. And the hardest reason to stop rescuing them may not be your fear that they will fall. It may be what stepping back would force you to discover about yourself. We'll come back to that. Maybe your phone rings late at night and your body tenses before you even answer. You already know there will be a problem, a fight, a bill, a decision they made without thinking about the consequences. You listen for an hour. You cancel your plans. You send money you cannot comfortably spare. You write the message they need to send, make the appointment they have been avoiding, or explain the behavior to the people they disappointed. And for a moment, everything settles. Then, days or weeks later, the same pattern returns in a slightly different form. You feel frustrated, but the frustration quickly turns into guilt. They've had a difficult life. What if no one else helps? I can handle it better than they can. If something goes wrong, I will never forgive myself. So you step in again. From the outside, this can look like extraordinary loyalty, and sometimes it is. Human beings need one another. There are seasons when a person is ill, grieving, financially unstable, traumatized, or simply overwhelmed. And receiving substantial help during a real crisis is not a moral failure. But the issue is not that you help. The issue is what the help repeatedly does to them, to you, and to the relationship. Support and rescue can look similar in the moment. Both can involve time, money, listening, or practical action. The difference often appears afterward. Support helps someone regain agency. Rescue repeatedly replaces their agency. Support says, I'll stand with you while you take the next step. Rescue says, I'll keep taking the steps so neither of us has to feel what happens if you don't. This does not mean the other person is deliberately using you. They may lack the skills. They may be frightened, ashamed, depressed, impulsive, or accustomed to someone else taking over. Their struggle may be completely real, but your exhaustion is real too. Good intentions on both sides can still create an unhealthy dynamic. Psychologists sometimes describe this as an overfunctioning, underfunctioning dynamic. One person responds to stress by doing more, organizing, anticipating, fixing, and controlling details. The other person responds by doing less, avoiding, freezing, or simply waiting. The more one person carries, the less visible the other person's responsibility becomes. Then the rescuer sees even more evidence that everything will collapse without them. It becomes a loop. They struggle, you intervene, your anxiety drops, their immediate discomfort drops. The deeper problem remains that the next crisis teaches both of you the same lesson. When pressure becomes intense enough, you will take over. Now, notice something important. Rescuing is reinforced not only because it helps them, it also gives you immediate relief. When you say yes, the guilt quiets. The frightening possibility of failure moves further away. You feel useful again. That relief teaches your brain. Taking responsibility is how I make anxiety stop. So, even when helping leaves you depleted, not helping can feel worse at first. For some people, this pattern began long before the current relationship. Perhaps you grew up monitoring a parent's mood, keeping peace between adults, caring for siblings, or being praised for being the mature one. You learned that safety came from anticipation. Love came through usefulness. Other people could have needs. You had responsibilities. There is something called parentification. When a child takes on emotional or practical roles beyond what was appropriate for their age. Not every responsible child experiences this, and not every helper has this history. But if you do, rescuing may feel less like a choice and more like your assigned position in every close relationship. You may even feel uneasy around people who do not need saving. A mutual relationship can seem strangely quiet. There is no urgent role to perform, no crisis proving your importance. You have to let yourself be known rather than merely needed. That may feel more vulnerable than exhaustion. Now, let's imagine Daniel has a younger brother, Marcus. Marcus has lost several jobs and regularly falls behind on rent. Some of those setbacks were not his fault. Others followed missed shifts and ignored messages. Each time, Daniel sends money, calls contacts, edits Marcus's applications, and speaks to family members on his behalf. Marcus is grateful. He promises that this will be the last time. Now, Daniel believes he is preventing his brother's life from falling apart. But slowly, Daniel's own life contracts. He stops saving. He hides the situation from his partner. He checks his phone constantly. His kindness turns into resentment, and then he feels ashamed of the resentment. Meanwhile, Marcus never fully experiences the link between his choices and the work required to recover from them. Not because he is incapable, but because Daniel keeps reaching the problem before Marcus has to. Neither brother is a villain, but the system is costing both of them something. And this is where people often get rescued completely backward. Preventing every consequence is not always the same as preventing harm. Sometimes a safe, proportionate consequence is the information that makes change possible. A missed opportunity, an uncomfortable conversation, a smaller lifestyle, or the need to ask a professional for help may be painful without being destructive. Now, if you remove every discomfort, you may also remove the moment when ownership begins. Of course, this principle has limits. If there is an immediate risk of serious harm, abuse, medical danger, or a threat to someone's safety, involve qualified professionals or emergency support. A boundary is not an excuse to ignore an emergency. But most rescue cycles are not one-time emergencies. They are repeated attempts to prevent another adult from experiencing ordinary responsibility, disappointment, or emotional discomfort. So, turn the camera toward yourself for a moment, not as an accusation, but as a way back to choice. Before you help, do you actually ask, or do you rush in because watching them struggle makes you anxious? Are you doing something they cannot do or something they don't want to do? Does your help leave them with more capacity next time or with greater dependence on you? Have you communicated your limits clearly, or do you say yes until resentment speaks for you? What part of your own life have been neglected while you manage theirs? And if they no longer need rescuing, would you still know what makes you valuable in the relationship? Now, here is the uncomfortable truth. Rescuing is not always pure selflessness. Sometimes it is an attempt to control. Sometimes it is an attempt to control an outcome so you do not have to feel guilt, helplessness, fear, or uncertainty. That does not make you selfish. It makes you human. But when your emotional stability depends on managing another person's choices, care quietly becomes control. Even if the control is wrapped in sacrifice, you begin treating their life as a project for which you will eventually be graded. You are not responsible for earning a good outcome from another adult. So, what can you do instead? Start by identifying the kind of situation you are facing. Is this an emergency or a temporary need for support, or a repeating pattern? Ask 3 questions. Is there immediate danger? Do they currently have the capacity to take action? Are they participating in the solution? Those answers should change the kind of help you offer. Next, slow the automatic yes. If the situation is not urgent, say, let me think about what I can realistically offer. Then wait. Regulate your own anxiety before making a promise. Urgency can be real, but urgency can also be familiar. Third, return the first step to them. Ask, what have you tried? What do you think your next step is? Or which specific part are you asking me to help with? This is not cold. It communicates belief in their agency. Then offer limited sustainable support. You might say, I can help you review the budget, but I can't lend more money. The goal is to make your help clear enough that it cannot quietly expand into total responsibility. After that, allow safe consequences to remain where they belong. This may be the hardest step. The disappointment does not automatically mean your boundary is wrong. The discomfort may activate old guilt in you. Feel the guilt without treating it as instruction. Guilt sometimes means you violated your values, but sometimes it simply means You changed a familiar role. Build a wider support system too. One person should not become another adult's entire emotional, financial, and practical infrastructure. Encourage appropriate help from friends, family, community services, therapists, financial advisors, medical professionals, recovery groups, or emergency services, depending on the problem. And finally, watch their response to your boundary. They may feel scared or disappointed. That alone does not make your response unhealthy. Change is uncomfortable. Look at whether they can eventually respect your limit and participate in solving their problem. If they repeatedly insult you, threaten you, punish you, or manufacture crisis whenever you step back, stronger distance may be necessary. You can care about the reasons for their behavior without continuing to absorb its effects. Now, what does healthy support look like? It is collaborative. The person receiving help remains involved. They can hear no without turning it into proof that they are unloved. They show effort, accept appropriate consequences, and use support to build more capacity. The helper can give freely rather than from panic. They keep their sleep, finances, relationships, and identity intact. They can be compassionate without becoming responsible for every outcome. Healthy support may still be tiring. Love sometimes asks a lot of us, but it does not require one person to disappear so the other can avoid meeting their own life. And that difficult discovery waiting beneath the urge to rescue, when you step back, you may have to discover who you are when you are not solving a crisis. You may have to tolerate the possibility that someone will misunderstand your boundary and learn that their disappointment does not define your character. That is not abandonment. That it is the beginning of a relationship in which two people are allowed to have agency. You do not have to become indifferent. You do not have to stop caring. You simply stop measuring love by the amount of damage you are willing to absorb. Offer a hand when you can. Tell the truth about your limits. Bring in real help when the situation requires it, but do not make your own life the price of keeping someone else from every difficult feeling. Care can stand beside someone. It does not have to go under with them. Now, which responsibility have you been carrying that may never have been yours to own? Let's hear that in the comments. Thank you for watching or listening. I hope to see you in my next video. Bye.